Hi everybody, I'm Nina Rowan Heller. Welcome to Energy Advantage 2020 episode 2. So for the first episode, we were talking about basically our empowerment, our physical empowerment during this time. And for those of you that are clients, are familiar with our way to work within the health platform, that we are learning as much about ourselves as we can in order to become as powerful as we can in whatever situations we are in. So this current situation that we are all in is unique and different and required some new focus. So that's what we're doing right now. So I'm going to review some of the things we talked about last week. And if you would like to go into more detail about that, you can watch episode 1 again. But this is just to review and look at how you did also with some of the things we were charged with last week. So the first thing that we talked about last week was really to address grief, and that right now during this time, this is the number one experience that people are having is grief, and there are stages that go through in grieving. And bottom line is to understand we are grieving and we are dealing with other people that are grieving the loss of what was normal, maybe the loss of jobs, loss of money, loss of future, the loss of the belief of what we thought was coming. And that is always a very difficult thing for people to go through, and it's fear, but it's also grief. So there is denial, anger, acceptance, and eventually we get to the point when we're in acceptance that we are being strategic and planning and working within the bounds of what our new reality is. So we talked about last week was to really understand about grief, understand about fear and faith, and that there is predictability and chaos, and that there are ways for us to actually create real predictability, which makes us feel like we are in control. And the number one thing that we're all charged with is our schedule. And so if you're coaching to increase business or change your health, a lot of times I'm talking with people about their schedule. But the reason that we're really talking about our schedule now is that people have moved into new environments and a lot of uncharted waters with how we work within whatever our business is. And so having a schedule, even if it's not the perfect schedule initially, is a great place to start. So last week we talked about the things that are power energy in things for you to put on your schedule, so that you put those in your schedule and then you schedule everything else. It will make you feel more powerful, more in control. You're having a lot of energy in to combat this time of fear, unknown, chaos that's going on. So the first couple things that are on the list, first is prayer and meditation, to make sure you have time for that. And again, you can listen to the first episode to review that. But for those of you that scheduled last week, you want to look and see, did I get all these things in my schedule? So prayer and meditation. Working out, that's the release of all of the energy that we are feeling. All of our feelings create energy in our body. So prayer, meditation, working out, meals, because they're happening every day, work, time with family. I want to make sure I hit them all in case, doing for others, and then the last part, which I really believe is really huge, is our creativity, joy time. That's where love, all of that stuff happens. So it's pretty understandable about each one of those things, what those are. The very last one, doing for others, right before that, let me hit that too. Doing for others, that's an energy in, even if it's something small, going to the food bank, sending gift cards to people who are in need, making sure a neighbor has something they need, any of those kinds of things, that's a huge energy in. Making phone calls. I cannot tell you how many people are so relieved to just get a check-in phone call or a text message to say, hey, I was thinking about you, how are you doing? Because during this time, a lot of people are really just thinking about how they are doing, not how others are doing. That last part, creative time, joy, love, doing those things that you do, you want to have that in your schedule, because that's the kind of growing that we do. That's where we really do a lot of growing. So if it's something you wanted to do, you wanted to learn to sew, you wanted to speak a new language, you wanted to master a new yoga pose, anything that you want to do that has been on the list, go through that list and figure out, what thing am I going to add into my schedule where I start spending time every day working on that skill. It gives you joy. It gives you a sense of accomplishment. It is growth during a time period right now where growth and success may not be as easy to find. So for example, if you have a goal, if you have any kind of goal that you've had for a while and you keep thinking sometime I'm going to have, it's a someday goal, sometime I'll have time to do this. Go and look at those someday goals and see if this is the time right now. And it doesn't have to be a huge goal, but it may be something as that's a creative. I wanted to learn to paint. Everything that you can do online, you're like, I'll take a painting class online. I wanted to work on my speaking in public. Lots of people are doing videos or connecting with people through Zoom. Whatever it is that you're interested in doing, take now as the time to use so that you can build that goal and make it happen. One example, my parents, their gym was no longer available, as everybody's gym is no longer available, so people are doing creative things at home. Had them walking. They started out walking. They were at about 1.5 miles. They live in the foothills of a mountain, and so it's a hilly 1.5 miles. And now they're up to 3 miles, which is great for people who are 80 this year. So they're feeling really accomplished, and they've extended that goal where they actually had a map, and they're mapping out all the streets they hadn't been on before, and their goal is to accomplish the whole map. And so it's those kinds of things. They don't have to be huge, huge, huge issues. They might be little things. And so those incremental changes make a difference. Incremental goals make a difference. Find those goals for you so that you can feel accomplished and gain power. I also want to address the issue. I'm just going to hit on this quickly because then I want to get into the topics for this week. Schedule for me works really, really well. I use it all on technology. It's on my computer, it's on my phone. I can look and see what's going on. But the night before, I always print out my schedule. So I print out my schedule. I have tasks, then I have open space. Everything's color coded. During the day, I also brought you a last week's schedule so you can see, because during the day I'm making notes, crossing things off, and it's a way of making sure, one, I'm following my schedule, and two, if there's anything in that schedule that I need to address, then I write it. So sometimes it's with a client, it might be from a meeting, and so it's just good to see the differences. This is a schedule before it's been touched. This is a schedule after the day has gone through. So what happens is I cross off things, I make notes, I put little things, I've got all kinds of information in here. At the end of the day, this schedule, I go through, I either have tasks that I'm going to do and they get inputted in my computer and then they'll end up in this little space here. Or I'll get them done. And I really enjoy marking things off too, because I cross things off and make all kinds of things. That makes me feel really good. Come up with some system so that you're looking at your schedule. For people who are learning how to follow a schedule, if you've never followed a schedule really diligently, it is the key to relaxing during the day. Because all you do is you don't have to think about things, you just follow your schedule. Your timer goes off, this is what I need to do. You might have to learn how to say goodbyes quicker or get off phone calls or say I need to go to my next appointment, whatever that is, but you following the schedule actually gives you a lot of relief because you don't have to do any thinking. You just follow the schedule and you put things that will make you successful. So what's interesting, if you haven't done this before, I would suggest you print out your schedule, and if you're not following it, instead of making notes about what you need to do with that particular appointment, you're making notes that saying, instead of following my schedule, I found myself distracted and got on another phone call, or I went for a workout instead, or this task before went longer, so I kept it going. Look and see what is interfering with your schedule. It's really helpful to know what am I doing instead of my schedule. And this will become more and more and more part of just who you are. Success comes from knowing what it is that you need to do to achieve success, putting it in your schedule, and then just doing your schedule. So during this time right now, that is something that it'd be really great to embrace if you have not done this before. Create a schedule so that you can follow it, that you can accomplish things and get into a regiment. It also is helpful if you are sharing a house and everybody's working at home, that whatever space you're working in, you put your schedule up on the door so everybody knows don't interrupt until this time, like I've got space. And everybody starts doing that. It gives people boundaries in a very small space, which is very helpful. So that's about the schedule. In this week, what I want to address is I want to really look at the empowerment that you have about decisions, okay? And this impacts your schedule. It impacts what's going on in the world right now. It impacts all kinds of things. We want to look at our decision tree, okay? So in this time where there's a little more chaos and a little less predictability, understanding your own decision tree can be really helpful, okay? So, excuse me, I will always be drinking water, which is a good reminder for you all to be hydrated too. You'll see that a lot. The decision tree, to help you understand why you might be having some extra feelings, not even just yours, but feelings that are challenging in general. The news is the perfect example of this. You will be shown a tragedy that is not yours, and yet it's maybe not going to impact you at all. It's not anywhere close to you. It's not anything except it elicits a, oh my gosh, that's horrible kind of feeling. In a decision tree, if you really are active about, I want to make sure what I put in my mind is something that is going to produce something positive or produce results for me. That decision tree, even if you watch the news, is you see it on the news and you ask yourself, okay, is this relevant for me? Because that might be the first question you ask. Is this relevant for me at all? No. Yes or no? If it's no, cancel it and just stop thinking about it. Don't watch it, whatever. Don't pay attention. Just let it flow. That decision tree, if you can understand how you can manage information coming in, it's super helpful to manage how you feel, okay? And our feelings are our choices, but the reality is there's also things that impact it and impact our choices. And so that decision tree that we think about our feelings, about what we're exposed to, about what people are saying, all of that, you just ask yourself a couple of questions to help determine whether or not it's something you should take in and feel and address. So during this time, I think one of the most important questions is this important for me? Okay, so showing hospitals in New York that are things that are happening that are tragic, is it important for you? It may be, and if it is, then what's the next step? The next step would be, okay, so yes, that's important for me. How is that important for me? What do I need to do with it? Because then that puts you in problem solving and production, which is energy enhancing, okay? If you ask yourself a question, is this relevant to me? And the answer is no. Some people who are big service caretaking people like myself would say, is it relevant to anybody I know? That's my next question, because if it is, then I think, okay, I want to know that so that I can share, help, or aid somebody in that situation. But most people, if it's not relevant to them right now, then what you want to just say is, okay, so that's not something I need to think about. There's another decision that's really helpful with feelings in general and during this time, and that decision tree that asks, is this mine or someone else's? And that's very similar to, is this relevant for me? But is mine or someone else's also covers the impact of feeling other people's feelings or having empathy and compassion. So empathy and compassion are very, very, very important, and especially important during this time. And I think they are actually having really positive results during this time. But at the same time, you have to look and say, is this mine or someone else's? Because if you see someone struggling or you feel their pain, you need to really understand, is that mine or someone else's? Because if you know it's not yours, you can actually address it in a productive way. If you know it is yours, what you want to make sure and address is that, what do I do from here? What is my next action? What is my problem solve? What is my to-do from this? Because if you don't have a to-do from it, then all that you are doing is creating powerless. So you are feeling powerlessness. So you're less power. So that's why that word empowered, I am empowered to do something. I actually feel like I have the ability to do something. Or I am powerless or disempowered. I lose power doing this. So if you understand when you see someone that is struggling and you check in and go, is this mine or someone else's? That's a really great way of understanding if you can do something, if you can be productive. So in doing that, what I want you to think of is that ability to be empowered is super helpful in being able to help others. So for people who are empathic or really, really compassionate, it is super important for you to know how to manage this. Because if you're just adding everyone's feelings that are having troubles, like for example, I get a text message, I'm in a group with some people that there's a person in the group that every day their ad to the group text message is crisis, 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 crisis. And it's not their crisis. They're just throwing in things from other people. Did you see? I heard. Oh my gosh, did you look at the news and watch it? And so they're just adding all these things up. None of those things are necessarily impacting her directly. What she is she's feeling all of that. She's feeling that, and she is what we call snowballing. So you're adding all the things together to create a state. And it doesn't mean that you do that actively, that's something your goal is to add these all up. It is just something that happens, and you don't mean to snowball. But what you're gathering, you're looking for more evidence for the fear that you're having and the crisis that you're having. And so you want to really look and think of, is this mine or someone else's? Because if it is someone else's, is there something I can do for them or not? And if not, it's just information. Do not engage it here. If you don't have the ability to help somebody or fix something, it just leaves you that fear of helplessness. What can I do? And so you really need to ask, is it mine or yours? And just because we have the ability to see everybody's stuff that's going on all over the world does not mean that it's ours to process through our body and to manage. Because I'm a big believer that if we had felt this, if we had the ability to connect with all over the world through all of our world challenges, the world would be a different place. This is something new for us. It's new for us to know that if crime statistics are high in one city that is 300 miles away from us, then we start worrying about our crime in our home right there. That's new because we happen to have so much information coming towards us. So this is sort of like that. Yes, it's good to know, or is it something that I can do with it? And if not, then it's just, that's a statistic, or that is something, or maybe it impacts somebody that I know, and maybe I can talk to that person and say, hey, I noticed that you have some stuff going on there. How are you? But it's not to just add to us to be more afraid. And so really, if it is yours, okay, this is why it draws all the way back to the schedule. If it is mine, is it a priority for me? You know, one of my top priorities, something for me to do. And then where do I put it in my schedule? Because if you're following your schedule, you have to have a place to do that. Otherwise, this is really important. Am I proactive or reactive? And if you have a schedule, you are proactive. And again, proactive means you maintain your energy. You're holding your energy. You're on your path. Reactive, you get a text message, you drop everything that you're doing and you respond to the text message. Reactive means you can't manage your energy at all. It means you're jumping into the next thing, and then you're jumping into this, and it's crisis management. When I worked in mental health for years, and one of the things that people always ask is, how can you, like my first thing in graduate school, I worked at a runaway shelter that had children from 9 to 18 that would run away. And that was new for me, the idea that anybody at 9 would actually end up in a shelter that they ran to rather than a friend or something. But so there were a lot of kids there that it was a very significant thing for them to choose to run away. And so then you would hear these heart-wrenching, horrible stories about why they ran away, and that it was actually a very functional thing for them to do because they were in danger. And I would listen to these stories, and I had to learn, and thank goodness I had really, really good supervisors, clinical supervisors, field supervisors who helped me understand the process of being able to be present without actually being in their crisis. Because there is no way I could have done work at a runaway shelter, worked with sexually abused teens, done divorce custody cases, any of that kind of stuff, if I was constantly joining them. So what I want you to think about is I want you to think about that issue about, is it mine or someone else's? And I want you to think about the idea about prioritizing and helping people, and think, how do I keep distant or separate? So distance also often makes people feel like they aren't staying as connected, but you just really want to be separate. And I want you to think of it this way. You see someone who is drowning, and they are struggling, and they are flailing, and their arms are, and your first instinct, you've never done this before, you've never seen anyone drown, but you know how to swim, and you dive in there and you go directly to them to help save them from drowning. Now, people will know, if you aren't a lifeguard, you're not really trained, what happens is people get scared and they grab onto you and they pull on you because they're struggling. So if you survive that and you get them out, you learn something very important. You're like, okay, what's the best way for me to do that where I'm actually not gonna cause some kind of danger to myself? I'm gonna be able to rescue others. I want to be able to be available to rescue others. So then you learn techniques, like you're standing on the shore, you see someone drowning, you've got one of those little inner tubes that you toss to them, a life preserver, and you say, grab that, put it under your arm, I'll pull you. You are on the shore. By doing that, you can save people all day long that are struggling. You throw them a life preserver, you pull them to shore, you're standing on shore. You cannot save nearly as many people if you jump in and sort of drown and have the drowning experience with them. And as human beings, I think it's really important. We often want to help people understand how much we empathize and how much compassion we have for them and their situation, and that often puts us in that situation with them. So what you want to think of now is, as you're going through, is this mine or someone else's? Is this a priority? Is this something I can put in my schedule to help somebody? Is also to really understand it's theirs, and I'm keeping myself separate. Here are the things that I can do to help you. Here are the things that I offer or I can bring to you. And by doing that, you will keep your power. So from the first episode, we're learning how to understand and manage everything that's happening around us, and take that feeling and the fear and grief and manage that. And then we put it in our schedule where we start to have control and power, and we follow our schedule. Then there's things that come up where people are inputting their crisis, or there's things that are happening that we're seeing on television or text messages or whatever. And then we learn how to go through our decision tree and decide whether or not it's a priority for us. Is it mine or someone else's? Is there something I can do? And if I am going to do something, how do I keep myself separate so that I can provide all kinds of tools, abilities, skill, an ear for them to talk to, a shoulder to lean on, without actually having to feel the experience. Otherwise, I won't be able to be there for others. So, wrapping this all up, what I want you all to think about is that this really is a choice. During this time, we have this, what for anybody who wants to change behavior, we have pattern interrupts. That's a great way to change behavior. We are having pattern interruption right now. And by having pattern interruption, we have the possibility of making amazing change. And we can succeed in things that we didn't have time or think that we were able to do before. People can work together to help and support each other. We can understand about how to have compassion and empathy and still have power enough that we can help people and be there to help even more people as we're going through this, because times may be getting tougher for lots of people. So thanks again. I'm Nina Rowan Heller. If you have any questions, just send me an email, nina@rowanhealth.com, and look for the videos each week. We keep having each video each week to build on and have support for you. Take care.